my fellow readers, this is Dark Symphony 777 with another fan fiction review. As always, a link to the story will be in the description below. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, click on the bell for notifications, and leave a comment in the comment section below on your thoughts of the story. And finally, this is my opinion. My opinion is indicative of everyone in the world, so please is not indicative of everyone in the world, so please respect that. My bad. My apologies. So the story I am reviewing today is called Megami no Hanabira. It is a Megami Tensei and Sono Hanabira ni Kuchizu. A Kiss in the Petals. There, I said the English name because I'm not gonna be able to say the actual Japanese name on the fanfiction page. Crossover written by Crimson Flygon. A Pokemon fan. Nice, very nice. And it is a bloody good crossover. I have to say, it is a very good crossover. I like this story. I like it a lot. But let's get started with the plot. So, well, not necessarily. I might as well just explain what I think of the two fandoms that they're based off. I hate Megami Tensei. I'm just going to say it right out the gate. Not a fan of the franchise. I just not interested. I played one Megami Tensei game, which is Devil Survivor Overclocked for the 3DS. I couldn't get past Builder. Even when I looked up how to beat him, I still couldn't beat him. Like I just rage quit. To this day, one of the only two games I ever actually rage quit that I never went back to. Yeah. Shows how little I care about the franchise. That I literally rage quit one game and just never came back to it in like over a decade. Like I had the, like I said, I played Devil Survivor, couldn't beat it, just gave up. Have fun. But yeah. And then there's also Kiss in the Petals, which is a Yuri adult visual novel series, which is basically just porn. It's a porn series. Honestly, don't blame me. Just blame the fact that when I looked up what Kiss in the Petals are, it literally had a link under adult, and it led to eroge. Like, eroge usually means, like, porn games. So, what's the plot about? Well, the plot basically takes place over the course of a week. So these two girls, Mai and Rio, they're basically celebrating, actually, summer vacation from St. Michael's Girls' School. Okay? And so they want to actually have fun and relax. Rio was kind of nervous because right before they were doing a test, and right before they did the test, they did some nookie. Yes, they had the sex. But Rio's like, I get to have summer vacation with my girlfriend. And then they notice these cloaked individuals. We'll get to them in a little bit. They're wandering around and they keep noticing more and more of these people. And then they finally find out that they're slowly being boxed in by these same groups of people. Everyone in the area starts getting kind of worried and then freak out when a demon comes in and kills someone. As you do! Rio and Mai escape, and then they find out their phones are being given an app to basically do something. So when it finishes downloading the app, it turns off, it turns back on, and demons actually appear out of the phones. And so they panic. They run. They meet another girl named Nanami, who's being chased by her own demon. They actually, they kind of stand together to try and just survive. And then they manage to beat the demons. The demons then give them a contract and servitude. Basically, you beat us, so we technically have to serve you. Yes, what's your name? God damn, I forgot her full name. Rio. A kiss to the Rio Kawamura. Okay, I'm a kobold. I serve you. Yeah, and then they do the other two, which is a pixie and a kabuso, which is like a cat demon. They do the things too. And then they finish to find the park where a bunch of these survivors and these cloaked individuals known as the Flock are basically trying to do base camp and stuff like that and basically collect survivors. And that's where the story starts. Over the course of the story, they meet 3 other girls named Sarah, Cade, and Yumi. There we go. Sarah, Cade, and Yumi. And all 6 of them are lesbians. I'm not joking. All 6 of them are just lesbians, and they have like pairing. And if I think 2 of them are cousins, but I think each of them fall in love with like a different girl. It's something. Over the course of the 7 days, a lot of stuff happens. They meet they made this big star demon named Kaiwan the Magnificent, and they beat him. They eventually find out the truth behind the outbreak, which was actually caused by the Flock. Don't worry, we'll talk about the Flock a little later. They find out that as they're going along with this venture, they get the auction, they get the morticians list, they get the fusion summon thing for demons, and they have to learn as they go along. But they still are heartbroken little girls. They're just teenage girls who just want to go back to a normal life. And they have to deal with the fact that they don't want to kill anyone. Like, they don't want to do anything. Even when they find out the Flock was behind all the stuff that happened, they're like, we don't really want to kill them because we're just little girls. Like, we're schoolgirls. We don't want to do any of this stuff. Along the way, they meet a bunch of other characters. They run into 2 high-ranking members of the Flock named Archibald Phillips and Colette Phillips. They meet a Yakuza gang leader called Sushi Naito, who's really, really something, if you ask me. And they run into a big group of other survivors who've actually left the park and basically wanted to try and survive on their own because they think the Flock was being useless. They were kind of right. Led by a police member named Tomohisha. And they basically get stronger, they interact, there's not really that much with the plot because the story focuses a lot on actual combat, and so while the chapters are long, there's only like 8 chapters. It's 260,000 words, and a large portion of each chapter is dedicated to a fight scene or 2 and other stuff with the demons. So it's kind of cool, except for like the last one. I'll get to that in a little bit. But yeah, the plot is good. And then at the end, when they finally win, they find out they were actually getting help from Lucifer himself. And Lucifer, in this story, and I guess in this universe, is a good guy, and God is a bad guy. And so Satan basically manipulated all the events on both sides to say, I chose you 6 to be my champions, to help me fight God across the multiverse. And then all the girls say, no, we don't want to do that. We just want to go back to our lives. And then Satan gets a little miffed, and he goes, all right. Okay. And then leaves. But yeah, that's the plot is just very simple. It's just very, very stretched out because there's not really a lot of depth to the plot. I mean, there's a whole thing with the Flock and their motives with unleashing the demons onto the town. But and I guess the whole thing with Naito. But outside of that, it's not really a very in-depth plot because what you read is what you get. Once you get to like chapter 1, you pretty much know almost everything about the plot except for the whole thing going on with the Flock. That's pretty much it. They just want to survive. They want to get rid of the demons. They want, when they find out the flock are evil, they want to stop the flock, and that's really it. Sure, the plot is simple, but the plot is executed very well. I only simplified it because there's just not much to dig into with the plot. This is very much a character-driven story. A lot of the characters are really well done. It's the characters that pretty much make this story as good as it is. The plot is just flavor text at the end of the day. It's basically just a background to what the author wants to do with the characters themselves, and basically just mess with them as much as possible. That's it. But yeah, now the plot, like I said, the plot is simple but executed very well. I'm just trying to catch up with my thoughts, so sorry for repeating myself right there. Now we move on to the characters. Let's talk about the flock. I want to talk about the flock first, mainly because if there's one part of the story I think kind of falters, it's the flock. I get the point that the flock is kind of supposed to be incompetent, because at the end of the story, Satan basically kind of implies as much. Like, they were just that incompetent and just like, they just handed me the victory. And there you go. For the most part, the flock is just generic. I mean, they have a bunch of mooks, and then they have the 4 higher-ups, which are Ethan, Chick, Colette, and Phillips. And for literally almost all of them were just completely just there. Like I said, the only weak part of the story is the villains. Like the random mooks for the flock. They're just basically there. They're just cannon fodder. That's fine. But when it comes to the 4 higher ups, if all of them actually control an archangel, which are just immediately powerful, that's when you see the problems with the flock as villains. You have Ethan and Chick, who are just not there. They're literally not there. Ethan is basically just a fanatical, and that's it. So it's like, do they offer anything besides fanatical? Does he show? He barely shows up. He's just, I don't like the demon tears because they control demons, and that's it. And he controls Gabe. No, I think it was Gabriel. Yeah, Gabriel, and he basically just a slow, strong guy, and that's it. There's Chick Johnson, who basically talks very, very slow, like this, and he controls Gabriel. He's a very sadistic guy, but outside of that, we just don't know much about him. That's basically like the problem with those 2 characters. They just don't show up. Chick shows up all of 3 times in this entire story, and he barely makes an impact. He shows up halfway to show off the archangels, to show off how powerful they are. And he basically curb stomps all the girls. And then he just and the next time he shows up, he basically just breaks Ethan's finger, and then gets told off. And then the 3rd time he shows up, he gets killed. Because he didn't realize that, hey, I'm gonna kill you all. So and then he sees literally the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. It's like, oh fuck. But yeah, those 2 are just not there enough, because if they were just regular canon fodder, they were just named characters who just happen to be like just normal bad guys, that would be fine. The problem is they're supposed to be like 2 of the 4 main group antagonistic figures. Like, yeah, Chick shows up. The first time he shows up, he's actually pretty intimidating. But the fact that he just doesn't show up anymore, outside of just breaking a finger and then getting himself killed, really negates how threatening he was in that first appearance. And Ethan's even worse, because Ethan just shows up, yells, and leaves. That's it. He does nothing else. And what about Colette and Phillips? They show up more often in the story than Chick and Ethan. Problem is, despite the fact those 2 are supposed to, well, Phillips especially are supposed to be the main antagonist, the story treats them very much as background characters. They're just there. Yeah, they have more developed personalities, with Colette actually having a conscience and wanting to help people, but still very willingly to do the evil things of the flock. Even Satan calls her on this, like, yeah, Ethan, Chick, Phillips, I like them more than you. But why? Because they were horrible people, just like you. The only difference is, they were at least honest with the fact they were going around killing people. You're trying to basically rationalize all your dirty deeds while still trying to make you have a conscience. Good luck with that. That's even more disturbing than the other three. Have fun rationalizing all of this. The fact that you lost. Yeah. And then Archibald Phillips is just basically an egomaniac. When the flock first showed up, I honestly liked the idea. They basically... I kind of figured out, obviously, that they unleashed the demons. Like, that much I was pretty much guessing was obvious. But I got their motives completely wrong. I honestly thought at first their motives were they were just going to kill the demons, and then they unleash the demons, and they kill the demons, and they go around the world just helping people out. People not realizing that they're summoning the demons, and then going around making people religious, and just spreading the word of Jesus through, like, actual action. It's like, yeah, that wouldn't be evil. That would be morally ambiguous, but that would at least be an interesting thing. And then the reveal that Phillips just wants to take over the world is just kind of underwhelming. I mean, it makes sense once I found out the whole thing from Satan. It's more a hindsight thing than anything else, because at the time when I saw this ending, I wasn't familiar with how the dynamics of Megami Tensei worked. The whole ending with Satan basically saying, oh yeah, God's basically an evil dictator, and I'm basically just a revolutionary. He just wants everyone to have free will. Huzzah! Kind of made me like the twist, because I didn't know what the whole thing with God and Satan was. I just honestly thought they were just like religious zealots, and I liked that whole more than just taking over the world. But once I found out that God is actually the main villain, it at least made sense. It at least appreciated it a little bit more, for what it's worth. But yeah, the reason I wanted to talk about that was Archibald Phillips. He's an egomaniac. He basically constantly thinks he's going to be the right hand of God, and he just can't die. Also, when he looks young, the way the author described him actually, coincidentally reminded me of Heisenberg from Resident Evil Village, with how the author described what he looked like when he was younger. It was very, very off-putting. It's like, wait, is he describing Heisenberg or Phillips? Like a young Phillips. And of course, the thing with Phillips is he's probably the most fleshed out of the four generals, but he's still, until the last chapter, until they're about to fight him, I couldn't take him seriously, because he's, well, not so much he's a feeble old man, like we've had plenty of feeble old men villains. The problem is, he was still treated as, like, a background character. Like, okay, so talking about God and all this, and how he's going to be dual, and basically just blocked the server, and it kept, until Metatron showed up, he just constantly felt like a background character. Like, he's just there to advance the characters. Like, I couldn't take him seriously as a villain, because he just wasn't there enough to really hammer on how dangerous he really was. Yeah, he's a good character, but he wasn't, and he was an okay villain, but I just wish there was more to him. Granted, at the end of the story, there was like two sequel hook, well, a sequel hook and a side story hook. Sequel hook being that Satan basically appeared outside of Mai's new home and basically smiled at her, saying that, our business is technically not done. And then the ending basically saying that, who were the name of those two characters? What were the name of those two characters? No. Go way back down. No. Oh, god dang it. Risa and Mia. And so basically, they're two other characters from Kiss and Petals. They experience a lot of stuff. We might get some more context on these four. Specifically, Chick and Ethan, once their story are told, because they spend a lot more time at the park, and the rest of the girl. And the main characters here just basically are away from the park for, like, the majority of the story. So, yeah, that's fine. Like I said, the flock isn't really that bad. The problem is the main four antagonists are just very, very flat, because two of them are just not there enough to really care about them. Colette is just treated as a background character for literally the entire time she's in the story, and Phillips is the same thing, except for when they finally confront him, where he feels very much like an actual villain. Like he's just not. And even then, Metatron just shows up, kills him, and then, you know, Metatron fights him, and then Phillips takes over Metatron, and then it's just really confusing. It's just, see, he's a good villain, Thomas. He's just not treated as a proper villain for literally the entire time. At the beginning, it worked because he's trying to sell a facade. It's just, as the story went on, and it made more and people, even when he was torturing Mai, I just couldn't take him seriously as a villain, because he just wasn't, the way he was written just kind of negated everything. It's kind of like Yzma from Emperor's New Groove, where she was trying to be a villain, but something always went wrong to kind of negate a lot of that intimidation factor of being a villain. I just couldn't feel like... That's the same thing with Phillips. Like, he kept trying to do something, but it's something that always happened in the story that kind of negated a lot of the intimidation factor for him as a villain for me. He just didn't work. He just honestly didn't work. Again, he wasn't bad. He just didn't really hit all the notes that I wanted to see out of a villain like him. So now we move to the main attraction, the 6 girls and Naito. Let's start with Naito. Just get him out of the way. I liked Naito's character. I liked him infinitely more as an antagonist than Phillips. Basically, he was basically a very, very rich guy who was disenfranchised over being rich. He sees all these people from like different like ethnicities and sexualities and stuff like that. And he actually kind of hated the money that he had. He hated being from old money. So he basically left the rich lifestyle, and basically implied that he started being a burger flipper. Was not good at it, and then went mad. And basically wanted to start a social Darwinist revolution, and basically use the demon summoning program to basically give everyone in the world demons, start a massive war, even willing to let himself die. It's like, I'm part of the rich, so therefore I have to die. I have to die to make everyone else feel uplifted. Keep in mind, he's saying a bunch of this to lesbians. Like, that's... Granted, he doesn't know they're lesbians. Like, a lot of his thing is just, he's social Darwinist, but he wants people... his whole idea is, like, he wants minorities and social minorities, black... rise against, like, the majority, like, the white people, the Asian people, since the game takes place in Japan. The LGBT community rise up against the straight people. The problem is he thinks every one of those people are just going to willingly start mass murdering everyone. Again, not to mention he's saying all this to lesbians. Again, he doesn't know they're lesbians, but which is probably my only knock against him. I think he would have been a little more twisted if they kind of he kind of figured out they were kind of all left gay for each other. All the girls were gay for other girls, and he still rambled on to at least so that way you can see that even it would have been a point of hypocrisy because I like those types of characters because usually their own logic basically circulates basically like Colette, where she's trying to compartmentalize everything she's doing as the greater good, and all it takes for them to become as low as what they're doing is basically pointing out hypocrisy, which is what happened with Colette, but didn't happen with Naito because the main characters didn't reveal to Naito that they were girl. Granted, from a storytelling perspective, why would you tell a social Darwinist Yakuza leader obsessed with class warfare, obsessed with killing all the white people, killing all the Japanese people, all the rich people, and having brown and black and Spanish and all the other minorities just going around murdering everyone? And then the main character's basically we like girls. Do you really think they would... any of them would have the balls to do that? Well, metaphorically, balls. But you get what I mean. It works, but it kind of is a knock against his character because I would have liked to see how he reacted towards the simple fact that they were gay. I understand why that didn't happen in the story because there's so much stuff happening, and again, the girls just really wouldn't benefit from telling him that they were lesbians. So I get why the author didn't do it, and I just think maybe what would happen if they did tell him. It would have been a nice thought experiment, at least. Seeing him trying to rationalize the fact that there's 6 lesbians right in front of him, and he's basically wanting to tell the gay and the homosexual and the trans and stuff to kill everyone, and they're we don't want that. But I like Naito. I really like Naito's character, aside from that niggling afterthought sort of thing. Not really a knock against him as a character. I really love him. I think he made a great secondary antagonist. I think he probably would have made a better antagonist than the Flock. That just shows how much I just didn't give a single shit about the Flock. That I would rather take the secondary antagonist as the main antagonist. But I digress. But now we get to the schoolgirls. I don't know why I said almost the lesbians. The main 6. So let's start with the main 2. Rio and Mai. I love these 2 characters. They basically work very well together. Rio is this little spitfire of a little girl who basically acts like a stereotypical tsundere at the beginning. But then she basically has a heart. But she also has a heart of gold for protecting her friends. All 6 characters actually kind of have a theme to their demons. Hers is basically just get the buff ones. Give me the buff ones. To just be. Why do you want the buff ones? So they hit as hard as possible. She starts with a kobold. She gets all these very, very, very buff demons that all have aggravate, which basically lowers their health but gives them a massive boost in strength, and they just hit stuff really hard. Hit them! Hit them! Hit them! Hit them! I'm hitting them as fast as possible. Hit them faster! Okay, boss! and stuff like that. But basically her character is, again, typical tsundere. She opens up to be a very, very hilarious heart of gold. A lot of the comedic moments are actually from Rio, just being so over the top in her antics. When they lose the food, she's very, very mopey. It's I want food! You just had a bag of chips. I want food! And when Archibald Phillips invites them to say, you want to work together, it's what do you want to eat? It's I want tea and cereal. Get her tea and cereal. But then when Mai goes missing, she completely breaks down because she just loves Mai that much. It's just she's a very well thought out character. And I really, really love Rio. I honestly think she's probably my favorite character because she's just so over the top and ridiculous that it just that she kind of completes the whole troop. Each character brings something different to the table. Mai is the unofficial leader. She basically tries to think of the plan. However, it's eventually revealed that she's literally winging it as she goes along because she was thrust in a position she wasn't ready for. She doesn't think she deserves, and she's trying her best to try and just try and go along as best she can. And I like that and I like the character of her being this very, very, very somewhat shy individual. Like, she's probably the closest we have to, like, an average person. She's just plain girdle. But then when she drops into the leadership role and she kind of learns and grows from it. And especially when she gets captured and she gets confronted by Father Phillips. And Phillips is like basically telling where the girls are, and she's basically just smirking at him, saying, "I already know what you're gonna do. I'm not gonna tell you jack because we already know you lost. So why?" And all that, plus the simple fact that she probably doesn't know where they are anyway. So, you know, so she pretty much has all the cards on the table. But I love Mai's character. She's not as good as Rio. Like I said, Rio is a very entertaining character. But Mai is super good in presenting herself as a leader who doesn't really know what she's doing, but still trying to exude that image of a leader because that's what her and her friends need. They need a leader, and she just happens to be the best one for the job. She also gets a demon called the Matador, which is basically a skeletal Matador with like a skeleton and he goes ole. I actually love Matador as like a actual thing, just like ole. I'm really fast. Oh, I want to fight. Only one mano y mano. I just wish Matador talked more, despite the fact she spends like half the story summoning the guy. Yeah, what was up? What's up with that? I get that in the battle the demon shouldn't be talking, but come on. It's Matador. You should have made an exception for him. But yeah, let's move on. Then we get Nanami. She's basically very worried for her girlfriend Sarah. She's probably, in my opinion, she's probably the weakest one out of all of them, because all of them kind of bring some kind of something to the table. And then there's Nanami, who's just, for the most part, there. She's still a good character. It's just she's completely undershadowed by everyone else. Like, she's pretty much the plain one. Like, she loves Sarah a lot. She basically wants to go after them and save them, but she's very much struggling with the concept of actually wanting to hurt people. She's very much, I guess you could say, a kind of sort of a pacifist, but she's very much the peacekeeper of them. She basically just wants to talk and help everyone out and just be a very nice person overall. And then we get Sarah. Sarah is the hot-blooded one. She basically has like a faux rivalry with Rio, but Sarah keeps changing the rules and just being an absolute dunce. She has a whole gimmick where she basically used nothing but Jack Frost and Jack Frost accessories. That's dedication. I know the Jack Frost demons. They're basically like little snowmen with like very cheeky smiles, like hee-haw! And I just love the fact that she just used them throughout the entire story. It's like, oh, Jack Frost ain't good anymore. Pyro Jack. Okay, Pyro Jack isn't good anymore. Frost Ace. Frost Ace ain't good. Blackjack. Black Frost. And he should ho. I can't remember that name. The last one, the one with the soldier one, was just complete. I couldn't figure out how to pronounce that name. Hichi ho. I can make it hurt. Hichi ho. But yeah, I liked her. She's basically hot-blooded. She basically acted like a sort of Mai if Mai didn't had a temper. She's the one who killed. She's the one who killed Chick, mainly because Chick tried to kill her girlfriend Cade, And was it girlfriend or cousin? Because like two of the Cade and one of either Yuma, or Sarah are her cousins. I just can't remember which one they were. I can't remember. Basically tried to kill her, and then Sarah just basically said, "Kill him, get him." And yeah, and there's also a thing where she's basically trying to be a prince, or is he? Yeah, it's key. Wants to be a prince, so she gets very hot-blooded for wanting to protect him because Cade always protects Sarah. But Sarah, now that she has demons, she wants to try and protect Cade and be the prince that that Cade always had. And so it kind of gets her into hot-blooded water because she's always constantly falling apart because her hot-bloodedness of wanting to prove herself and prove that she can protect Cade like Cade protected her in the past always backfiring her. And then they find out that they'll be princes together and be the prince and knights to each other. It's a very sweet thing. And I actually really, really like that. It's nice. It's very sweet. And then there's Yuna. Yuna is basically, I believe she's like the healer. Basically, all her team always has some kind of healer to the group. And, like the Varadi and Amaterasu and stuff like that. She's basically the team medic. Like, she's the sweet girl. She's like the very, very sweet girl with the heart of gold who just wants everyone to be friends and be very nice to each other. And just everyone has sunshines and lollipops. And yeah, she's really, really entertaining but she also acts like a secondary command to Mai. When Mai gets kidnapped, Yuna takes charge and basically wants, everyone to be together forever. Or am I thinking of Nanami and I'm mixing up the names? I just realized, am I mixing up the names? I don't know. I finished, I read half the stories over the last couple days at night. I spent 2 nights barely getting any sleep just finishing the story because I really love this story. And then there's Kate. She's basically very shy. And at first she doesn't actually have a summoning program because she's the one who beats up Jack Frost for Sarah. And Sarah's like, my prince, my knight, yay. And basically that starts Sarah's thing. Basically Sarah gets a phone, summons a Valkyrie, leading to a hilarious moment where Valkyrie's like, oh, we're gonna fight. And then she notices she's surrounded by a bunch of demons. It's like, wait a minute. This is not fair! Fire! And then Mai goes, fire! And they just basically dogpile on Valkyrie. And then the Valkyrie still has fight on her because her horse is collapsed on her. It's and Murmur basically helps her out. Murmur's a very knight with riding a griffin. Helps her up. And Valkyrie's I still have fight! And then Murmur has his griffin open his mouth what's your name? Okay, I pledge allegiance to you. I'm yours. But Kate is very shy. She's just kind of like Nanami. She's kind of there, but the simple fact is we're just not given enough time for her to really acclimate. But she does have a good character. She sees what Sarah is doing, basically endangering her life to be the prince. Cade basically wants to help her out and basically help each other out. They're basically supports for each other. Cade was there just to help out Sarah, and Sarah's there to help out Cade get some more confidence and stop being shy and be the better person she can be. And they basically do a lot to each other, and that's basically the characters. I love all the characters. I love Rio the most. I love Naito a lot, and all the other girls are just really good. Just don't like the look. You're just very bland. Not for me. Grammar errors. There were, I think, 1 or 2 grammar errors the first 2 chapters. It evened out afterwards, as far as I know. But that's fine. It's fine at all. Pacing. each chapter takes place over the course of the day. So as each day, the chapter gets longer because more stuff is happening that just eat up more and more time. Like the last chapter. However, there is a problem with moderation when it comes to the fights. So I wanted to bring this up here because this was probably next to the flock. My biggest problem with the story was the final fight. It went on way too long. It dragged. I'm okay with stories having insanely long battles, like fight scenes, like in story. Like this is not new. This is something not new. They're like Lord of the Rings. There's a lot of fighting in Lord of the Rings, or like other books where lots of fighting happens. Sometimes they like to drag on. Here's the thing. There is such a thing called becoming disinterested with the whole thing. Like the same thing happens when you're reading an erotic story and then you see a lot of sex. If you see a lot of the same sex in the same build-up, it gets repetitive and it gets boring after a while, especially if the problem is exacerbated when it happens one after the other. You lose interest in the whole thing very fast. To put this in perspective, the final battle, like, not specifically because there's two battles happening in the final chapter. It is Colette and Naito and their group versus Tomohiro, basically who's a cop, and they're the ones helping out the girls and basically protecting the hospital from Naito and Colette. That battle, fine. But on the other side, you have a just mammoth fight between the girls and Philip, and then Metatron, and then Philip again because he takes over Metatron for some reason. The story takes place. The final battle starts literally about a fourth, maybe a fifth into the final chapter. Do you know how long the final battle between the girls and Philip lasts? Literally the entire chapter. This is a big problem when you're doing such a long battle. If you don't provide variety, if you don't add twists and turns to the fight, readers are going to get very, very bored. Like, and I wouldn't have a problem with this fight if stuff actually changed. Like, okay, they fight some random, the last of the flock, which are just basically too scared to fight back against Phillips, and they're basically just turned into rabbit animals that are going to kill the girls. And so then Phillips kills the flock, shows up with Michael. They fight Michael, and then Phillips takes off his jacket, basically turns into a buff, and basically showing that he's buff, fights the girls themselves, and then Metatron shows up, summons two angels named Sariel and Ariel, Sariel and Angiel, and then three of them, and then there's like three separate fights. And then once the two angels are dead and they all fight Metatron, then Phillips takes over Metatron, and then they have to fight Phillips again. That's an interesting thing. The main problem is all the fights are very samey in presentation. Like, in concept, they fight an angel that basically just very, very tanky, and then they fight a guy who basically has the power of the gods, and then the voice of the god Metatron shows up, summoning two angels. One of them is very resistant to physical, one of them is very resistant to magical, and they split up into three to fight them, and then once all of them focus on Metatron gets taken over by Phillips. That would be interesting if not for the fact that all of it takes place in one area and doesn't offer any changes to everything setting up. They just summon the demons, call their attacks, and then just basically attack them. In a shorter fight sequence, that can work. But when the entire fight sequence takes place as long as it did, it drags on and on and on, the reader is probably going to lose interest into what's going on and start skimming and not really be interested in what's going on. It's the same thing with sex. It's the same thing with like anything that's just going to drag on in circular motion over and over again. People are just going to lose interest and just not care about it anymore. That's basically what happened to me with this final fight. It just dragged on and on and on and on and on like the Energizer Bunny, and I just lost interest. Like once Philip joined the fray, I just completely lost it. Like I completely zoned out and basically started skipping the fight. So anything that changed, that's fine. And then Metatron showed up, and then I got interest in Metatron. And then once the fight started going on, and then it was just repeating itself, and then I lost track again. And then Shiva showed up, and then that's cool. But then it just went back to being repetitive because. That's fine. And then Philip showed up and took over Metatron, and that was when I at least got interest in the story again. The last time a fight scene this long happened was all the way back among some of my very first fan fictions when I reviewed a tetralogy of Yu-Gi-Oh! Based stories. And the final battle between Mana and her group and the evil wizard Mizanaroth. That fight was very long. But that fight had different sections to it that drastically changed up how the fight goes. So it's like the first part of that fight, Mazzaroth basically uses just magic and a massive barrier to just basically protect him. That's fine. And then once they shatter the barrier, he summons Exodia Necros. Mana and her buddies basically summon the Synchro Dragons, and it's basically become an aerial battle. Mazzaroth basically just is not really that much of a factor because they're focused on Exodia. They take down Exodia, then Mazzaroth summons Darkness Neospear, and now Mazzaroth is basically puts like a bubble around where he's conducting the ritual, puts it in Neosphere to basically have him act as a living generator. They can't get back to Mazzaroth until they kill Darkness Neospear. They kill Darkness Neospear, they manage to get back to Mazzaroth, where he fights them again, but this time he's using magic, he's actually physically fighting him. It's a every part of the fight is dynamic and does... That's how fight scenes that length should go. There should be drastic changes with how everything's being presented, how everything's being written. What happens when they fight the Flag? They summon regular demons. What happens when Phillips and Michael show up? They summon the Fiends. That basically are the only things strong enough to kill Michael. What happens when Phillips gets strong? They just summon more demons and just basically... just use the demons to fight him. Then Metatron shows up. They summon different demons. And then the angels show up. They split up into 3 and they fight those demons. And then Phillips takes over. And then they just use... and then Mai just summons Matador and Shiva shows up. And then just basically does a lot... and then it becomes a beam struggle at the end. Mainly because Shiva gets like very, very mad because... Rio kept mispronouncing his ultimate attack. Leading to a very hilarious moment where it's like, Padafasari! And then she was like, Padafasarasa! And then just fires the thing from his forehead. Honestly, thought that was funny. But yeah. This final fight is a perfect example of how not to do a very, very long fight sequence. Because... the general structure of the fight itself doesn't change over the story. They just summon a demon, fight something. Summon different demons, fight something. Summon different demons, fight something else. It becomes super repetitive and just completely nullifies any enjoyment I had over that. It really should have ended once they beat Phillips, because honestly, past that, it just got dull. I think it's very, very uninteresting. But I liked everything else. Like the Flock are boring but functional. But then that final fight scene just really sucked so much excitement out of me. It just became boring and dull, and I just wanted to get it over with. That's sad. Like, that's really, really sad when you think about it. And that's pretty much my review of Megami no Hanabira. Do I recommend this? Yes. I think this is a perfect story for not only people who are very much big fans of the Megami Tensei series, but also, excuse me, similar to Turnabout Storm, people who are just not familiar with the Megami Tensei series, like myself, because I will be honestly frank, reading this story all the way through has actually made me want to replay Devil Survivor again. I actually want to replay the game. And that's saying something, considering the fact that when I first read the story, I just gave zero shits about Megami Tensei. I knew of the game. My friend is a very big Persona fan, and I know Persona is like a spinoff of Megami Tensei. But I just did not care. The only game of Persona I actually know about was 5. And the only character I actually kind of liked besides Joker was like Futaba, because I liked Futaba. Because I think Futaba is like very, very adorable. I like the sun. I like the glasses and the orange hair, and the fact that she's a gamer and she looks at you funny, like she wants you bones. But yeah, but this game actually makes me want to play the game again. Will I probably rage quit? Who knows? I have to actually get past fucking Belder, because fuck Belder. Honestly, fuck him with a crowbar. But I like the story enough that it makes me want to give the franchise another try. Am I gonna fail? Am I, is it gonna be good? I'll probably do a let's play of it. Who knows? I'll probably rage quit at Belder. But who knows? But yeah. But when it came to my favorite part, I would probably have to say nothing. This is just a thoroughly enjoyable story, but there's just nothing that really stood out in my eyes to make me, as a singular moment that I really, really liked. I love the whole story, except for the final fight. But I guess you can kind of say the Matador fight, because I actually liked the Matador. He basically just shows up wanting to fight these girls, wanting to test their mettle and prove that they're worthy, and basically fights them. That's fine. What would I change about the story? The flock can stay the same. Like, if there's Colette would probably be all the higher end flocks will probably be worked on more in the sequels, the side sequel with Risa and Mia. Those are probably going to be worked on there. Maybe, I don't know. And even then, Colette is still alive. Out of the 4 members of the flock, Colette is the only one still alive. So if the author does make a sequel, there's still a chance that the author may do something with Colette. Who knows? Like I said, we had back-to-back sequel hooks. We had Satan appearing outside of Mai's freaking house where she's going. She sees Satan in disguise, and then literally the last line is like, the tale of Risa and Mia has yet to be told, which is basically just going to be a side story that happens during the events of this story, just with different characters. So there's many things that with the flock that are up in the air, so I'm not going to say anything about them. However, I will say change the final fight. If you want to add Metatron, I would probably say change up the structure of the fight itself. Like, have Metatron show up, but have him like summon his angels first and then have them fight. And then he's just looking down and when they're attacking him, he's just shrugging off their attacks like, nah. Like, because they're weakened demons, and he's like, I'm not gonna fight you because you're beneath me. And you already wasted your fiends on Michael. So it's like you got nothing for me. And so they all decide to just team up on the Angels. The Angels actually team up so that way it'd be a boss fight 2-on-1. And then every time they try to get a killing blow, Metatron basically just, does some magic, protects them. So it'll be like a gigantic Tamer versus Tamer, Demon Tamer versus Demon Tamer fight, but, And so the girls actually, or better yet, just have the girls actually fight, like, have them be the ones to actually attack the devils, because I know in those games the people can actually fight as well. They're little girls. But come on, at least just having Rio just show up, sideswipe one of the Angels with a sucker punch to the face, and the Angel's like looking at her funny. He's like, "The fuck are you doing?" And then he gets swarmed by the demons. And like the rest of Rio's friends were like, "Why did you do that?" And like Rio's like, "I thought it was a good idea." Yeah. But yeah, it's just I really think just change up how the fight changes everything up as the story goes on. You can have the story begin with the crazy flocks and then have it with Michael. But once Philip gets into the fight, I think there should be at least some kind of difference in like how the fight, because they're going against someone who has a harmonizer, who has powers. It should just be something different besides just him showing up and whacking the demons with the skull. Like you should like maybe have them play more defensively, like Phillips actually actively going after the girls instead of going after the demons. Like he basically like maybe have Phillips do like some kind of thing that basically cancels out the demon's mana, so they have to fight physically. They can't use spells. They have to actually physically fight. And then Phillips just plowing them all down, and the girls realize they have to actually get into it and basically just attack them and try and hold them off as they get like a demon to recharge their mana, which would be Matador. And then just do something to change the structure of the fight. That's basically it. As for what I think the sequels go, with Risa and Mia, we'd probably have to explore the other members of the flock. Just give us more info on them. Like there's a whole thing with Set, and it's fine. So like we have an antagonist for that story, which will probably be Set. Like maybe have Chick and Ethan show up and kind of go more into their characters. Maybe have, since some of them actually stay more at the park, so they have more time to get to know Colette and Phillips, since the girls are just basically out in the park, out away from the park for like the majority of the story. So give us time to get us more with those characters. With a possible actual sequel, well, you'd have to give them back the ability to summon demons. How I would do that is it wouldn't be Satan who would give them the phone, it would be Matador, because at the end they actually travel to different parts of the world and basically they're just not together anymore. So an easy way to do that would be get Matador, have him show up at Mai's place all by himself with no demon summoning program. Basically they said, "I wanted to talk to you. You earned my respect. So I'm making you an honorary fiend." And basically gave her the ability to just summon Matador whenever she wanted to just help out with anything. As long as it's not too menial, I love a good fight, but I at least want to get to know you, as at least an acquaintance. And so basically, Matador being fast enough gets Mai to the other girls, so that way whatever catastrophe happens, she can just be able to meet together again without too much problems. As for where that goes, probably have Colette be like a side character, just go more into her character, and maybe have the villain be Metatron again, mainly because Metatron's like, "I lost to a bunch, out of all the losses I've suffered in the name of Yue, this is the most humiliated. Who did you lose to this time? I lost to a bunch of schoolgirls." And he basically wants revenge by he doesn't want to spread God, he just wants to kill him. "I just want to kill these 6 schoolgirls. Let me kill them." And that's basically it. What the story would entail specifically, But who knows? There's a lot to love about the story. I honestly can't wait to get back into Devil Survivor somehow. But yeah, so that's my review on Megami no Hanabira. This has been Dark Symphony 777, and cut.